So my very first deal, I bought like a turnkey duplex with a knock-in basement, and this was like right in my backyard. I grew up in a C-class neighborhood, and I invest heavily in C-class, but this was in kind of the B-class section. And I did an FHA. My intent was to live in the basement knock-in unit, rent out the top two, and I was going to
What's a knock-in? Sorry.
It's basically like, it's not a legal unit, but
Okay.
you could live in it if it's your building. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily rent it out, but it's like
Yeah.
an efficiency in the basement.
Got it.
And I'm going to rent out the top two units, above me, and I would have been making about 500 or 600 a month off of that property, living in my own property. And I ended up putting down about $7,000 on that deal, and it was just a ton of cash flow. So I got all my money back in the first year, and that was turnkey. That was buy the property, literally sweep the floors, touch up paint on the walls, hand over the keys, and start collecting rent. And that was my introduction into like the buy and hold cash flow game.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Nice. So you said basically that paid for it paid for the entire mortgage. Plus you made about 700 a month. So you eliminated your entire cost of mortgage or rent, basically largest line item in your budget. And you still were making 700 on top of that.
Yeah. And that was the dream, because I came into that situation. I was living at home, in my bedroom I grew up in, right? Saving money, paying rent to my parents, trying to make it happen, working all commission, sales job, and not making much money. It took me, a couple of years of saving, paying myself first, which is a big principle that I preach and practice, putting away 10%, 20% of every commission check until I had enough to deploy into the real estate game. And, it was a real leap of faith. I mean, that was my easiest deal ever of all time. I was the most horrified during that deal of like all time. And I think that's something that people who are new to real estate don't understand. Your first deal, if you're not horrified, you don't have a pulse, right? You're probably not taking it serious enough. We're all very scared. And then by deal, 100, I'm like, oh, we got to blow the roof off. No problem. Whatever. It's a burnout. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's strange how that happens.
Yeah, exactly. So fast forwarding then to today, what do your deals look like now? What have you learned, I guess, along the way, and kind of like what type of deals do you target now?
So along the way, when I started to get really serious about this and start looking at scaling, because that's how I was able to do over 300 deals in really the last, we'll call it 6 to 7 years, where most of those deals came from. I ended up partnering up with someone and building. We acquired 3 properties on a rundown block in a C-class neighborhood. And one was a tear down where the second floor was on the first floor. First floor was on in the basement, basically. Like it was just caved in, right? You open the door and you're like, oh, it's a swimming pool here. The other one was a burnout and the other one was a shell. So we hire a contractor. He comes in and he's going to run the contractor game on us. I mean, he gives us an unbelievable price. I can do all 3 for $100K. And when you're new to the game, you're like, this is great. Got the deals, you got the guy. I bought the shells for maybe $10,000 a piece off the auction. This is golden. And what I didn't know was the contractor game. That is the game, to give you this unbelievable price and then milk out money.
Starts off great.
Issues. It starts off great.
Yeah.
And then they milk money. They get ahead of these draws. And because their price is so unbelievable, you can't really go out and get another contractor, because they're going to tell you the truth, which is, hey, this is going to cost $250,000. And you're not ready to accept that reality. So you'll live in the dream until ultimately this guy ends up running off with 40 grand. And at that point, it was almost one of the best things that happened, because I realized I got to get really serious. I have to become the GC in that sense. I need to understand the cost of every screw, every nail, how much labor goes into a property, how much that costs, what are the turnaround times. And over the course of time, I got better at all of those disciplines, going through the full gut renovation process. So now the deals that I target, they're all shells. They're pretty much all full gut renovations, heavy burst strategy. We try to buy for 10 to 20 cents on the dollar. invest 40 cents, 45 cents on the dollar, do a cash out refinance, recycle your capital, and keep building is, the philosophy there.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Like, what's the appeal of rehabs? Because you hear so many of those horror stories. I've been down that same road. I've done quite a few rehabs over the years. Gone through several contractors that were extremely frustrating experiences. But what is it that, I guess, why is it that you target rehabs as opposed to, it seems a lot easier to go buy something more turnkey?
Yeah. So when you get really good at rehabs, and in order to get really good at them, one, you have to buy extremely, low to the ground, right? You have to buy for 10, 15, 20 cents on the dollar. You get good at going to the auctions and understanding the different areas you can buy in. But once you can buy low enough and you understand the cost of construction and have a good team, you can build at a lower cost than the GC markup cost, which is typically prime plus 40%, right? So if it costs a GC 100K in subcontractors and materials, they're usually going to mark up that by 30, 40%. And that's what they're going to charge you. When you can become the GC, you can save that 40% markup. And that could be $50,000, $40,000 if you're doing a certain type of deal, maybe a larger multifamily. So once you master that skill set, you can now acquire properties either at cost or what I call getting paid to build, which is, I'll go and buy a property for 20K that has an ARV of 250, we'll call it. I'll invest 100K into it. I'll be in at 120, and I'll go do a cash out refinance for maybe 140. I'll put that 40K in my pocket and then continue to reinvest that capital into future deals. And when you get paid to build, there's an appeal there because you're recycling capital, you're picking up cash flow for every property. But also, if you're married and your spouse is doing the W-2 thing, or you're still working, you're creating these massive tax losses from the birth strategy that can actually offset your spouse's complete income or whatever taxes they're paying. So if they're paying $80,000 in taxes or having that withheld from the check, you might get all of that back in a tax return. And that's where it can be really powerful as well for, married couples as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. What metrics, I guess, are most important to you when you're analyzing a property? How do you analyze it and say, yes, this is one I want to move forward with?
I'm big on cash flow, right? So okay. I'm always looking at things that would impact cash flow. So we know interest rates can impact cash flow, but once you lock that on the 30-year fix, it's kind of locked in. I'm looking at property taxes, which is why I love C-class neighborhoods, because they'll tend to have lower property taxes, lower acquisition costs, more blight, which means more volume of inventory, and more the ability to control neighborhoods, because now I can go in and I can buy maybe 5 properties within a 4-block radius. So my economy of scale, when I'm running my demolition team through and then my framing team through, and they're just going across the street or down the block, I get economy of scale that leads to massive savings. So I'm looking at areas where I can do high volume that have low property taxes, low acquisition prices that are close to things like hospitals that provide a lot of jobs, public municipal service buildings, just good blue collar jobs that exist within a lot of cities. And I'm looking for just inventory. How much inventory is out here? Good comps. And if I can have what I call a developer spread, which for me is around $200,000. If I can buy it for 50K and the ARV is 250, I have a developer spread where I can take my team and get in between that deal on the rehab side and produce either a break-even deal or maybe even get paid to build it.
Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. And I think another big advantage of rehabs that I've noticed is that once you go to rent it, then you've got a property that absolutely is gut rehab. Everything's brand new. So as opposed to buying something that looks nice, it's livable, it's turnkey, but the mechanicals might be pretty old and you're going to have a lot of maintenance. You probably have very little maintenance once it gets going, because you've already gutted the whole place. So yeah,
and that's correct, because a lot of us, when we're doing the cash flow thing, we're looking at just the raw numbers, but there is that CapEx expense where the toilet breaks, or there's a leak, or the bricks need to be repointed, and these things are definitely more costly with the turnkey because corners get cut. And what we have to realize about, if you're investing in any of the major cities in America, a lot of these cities were built in like 1915. These properties are over 100 years old now.
Yeah.
So they need extensive renovation, and any corner cuts, they're going to come back and bite you.